Hey everybody, how y'all doing? Hope you can all hear me okay. Um, I'm just here to kind of chat about what's going on with the channel and where I'm at, what I'm waiting for, things of that nature, and basically to give you all caught up on what I'm doing and the reasons why. Um, so I know you all remember the Shrike from the very beginning. It was an experimental drone, basically just to test the um, idea of using EDFs and D-shot ESCs as drone motors rather than open propellers. Now, the idea was understanding how iNav worked with the whole system, with the iFlight. And I don't even know if I picked the right, ESCs. I don't know if I picked good ESCs. I honestly just went with. I knew what my amp requirements were, so I went with what I could get. At the time I bought a power distribution board, which was the APD 500X, which apparently I have to have an LLC for to buy any more of them. And I really don't know a lot about what's out there that I could use realistically from the agricultural side for power distribution, because I'm going to be drawing a lot of amps. Because we have the Javelin, which for some reason, I named it the Javelin, but now it looks like the freaking Plague Doctor. So it's like, it does. Either that or a really messed up duck. That duck is high. Look at him. Just pinned. All right? But, it is what it is. It'll look good flying through the air, either on its way up or on its way down. It's going to be funny either way. Now, here's the situation I'm encountering in with the Javelin in transitioning, and we'll get to construction in a minute because I still am awaiting wire for that. I don't know why, but one of the engines when I transitioned from drone, it'll spool up in drone, and then I transition from drone to plane, and it's fine. When I transition back from plane to drone, I get one engine cut out, and it's always the same one. And I don't know if that's a capacitor thing or an iNav thing. It doesn't make any sense, because if it's working in drone mode, then you transition and transition back. There shouldn't be a problem. The only thing I can think is I have solid core copper wire going from the power distribution boards, motor signal wire ports, to the motor signal wire ports on the SpeedyBee F405 wing. Now, them being solid copper, I did it because it was easier to solder into the port than using headers. Since I was rotating the flight controller, I didn't want them to come loose, so I soldered them directly. Now, I should use some kind of like a servo wire, something like a soft servo wire, something like that. So I may replace those before anything else, or just cross my fingers and pray that it transitions without shutting down an engine, because I'm going to have to remove like hot glue, things like that. So it's going to be a meticulous kind of thing to do. And I don't want to have to remove the flight controller in order to do this. So realistically, I just need to check my connections, make sure everything's good. If I get the excess hot glued in there where it's supposed to be, so the wires don't move or put any stress on the points that move, I don't want the wire where it plugs into the port to move at all. So I have to hot glue it there and then hot glue it underneath the flight controller's rotator, so that it doesn't actually pull on the wire. But I also have to worry about that on the power distribution side too. And when I designed this thing, I designed it to where the power distribution board would sit inside the upper portion here, the cone. But there ended up being wiring issues as far as how thick the wires were. realistically, I needed to run channels for them in through the body, which I did for the servo wires, obviously, but it just felt like there was clearance there. And I think it was just because when I was designing it, I was looking at, I have a big monitor here, and I had the thing blown way up, and I'm like, oh, that's plenty. I didn't bother measuring it. It was an oversight on my part. But there is, I could obviously make clearances, but the problem is I don't want to tear the front of the cone apart. This is where everything is. You have the GPS up in the nose, the flight controller, pretty much everything except the ESCs and the power distribution board are down or up here in the cone, and the PDB and the ESCs are down inside the fuselage below the motor inlets where you see them. They are going to be mounted, however, underneath each one of the nacelles. I was going to go with a viewer's idea of putting them inside the actual wind tunnel, but I was afraid that the capacitor was going to get torqued too much. And it was just a matter of, if I do that, I'm going to have to cut holes in this thing. It's going to look horrible, and I'm going to have to use hot glue to plug the holes because I don't want to reprint the entire core again. But when I do reprint this, because there are going to be some modifications, this is a prototype, so I'm going to get it. I'm not going to transition it on its first flight. What I'm going to do is I'm going to try it in drone mode, and then I'm going to land it, I'm going to hover it, and I'm going to land it, and I'm going to transition into plane mode, make sure all the motors are spun up, and then I'm going to take off, because it's balanced enough to where you don't really need it to be in drone mode for it to take off straight up, because all four motors are evenly spaced. So, and the RPMs on them are perfect. So realistically, the only thing I need the transition for is landing. And therein lies the problem. I mean, well, no, I take that back. It's transitioning out, either into drone mode or out of drone mode, that shuts that motor down. And I think it's just because something's loose in there and it loses the signal from the SpeedDB. So it's either a crack in the solid copper wire because I've been messing with it so much. So I think before I go up, I'm going to change those solid, I think before I go up, I'm going to change those solid copper wires out for some soft servo wire type wire that's not so, it's more pliable, but it's like the wire that you use for the ground and the signal out of the ESC to the PDB, or anything that goes to like an ELRS receiver, but a little bit higher gauge wire than that. It's just soft wire, and it doesn't, and it flexes better than the wire that I have, so I think that'll solve the issue. As far as the power distribution side goes, there are issues with the fact that the wire is copper clad aluminum from the manufacturer. But I'm pulling, I don't know why you would design and this is just a question for iFlight. I don't know why you design something that can draw 100 amps on a burst, and you give it a 50 volt 1000 UF capacitor, which is fine, but you give it copper clad aluminum wiring that doesn't dispense heat at all. All the wiring going all the way to the motor is the same way, except for the motor wires that are coming out of the motor. Those are all pure copper. And then we go to copper clad aluminum, but you put a really cool looking aluminum heat sink on the ESC. That doesn't make any sense. The heat buildup is from the power distribution board to the ESC. The capacitor gets hot, the wires get really hot, and my XT90 plug gets really hot. So this is one of the reasons why I went with 8 gauge pure copper winded wire. It looks like rope wire with soft body coating on the outside, so that I would have the best heat displacement that I could get. Now I do have some air going into the main front channels through these nostrils on the freaking Plague Doctor plane. I can't unsee it now. But realistically, it's just one of those situations where I just don't have enough airflow through the body itself for the ESCs to sit in there. Not to mention the fact that the ESCs fit in there just fine. The wiring coming off the motors and going from the ESCs to the power distribution board are stiff wires. They are bulky. They are uncooperative. You can't move them at all. You basically have to scrunch everything down into the cavity, which I opened up the cavity in the thing. It still wasn't enough. And then you've got the issue to where you have two ESCs on each side, so of the fuselage on either side of the battery on the inside, and you don't want their contact points hitting. So you want to wrap them, but you don't want to wrap them too much because you're trying to dispense heat. So I figured for the prototype, the best course of action was to place them underneath each engine nacelle and then run the wires down inside, because up underneath the back side of the nacelles, I'll try and show you. Underneath the back side of the nacelles here, right up underneath there is an opening that goes into the cavity. It was a byproduct of something in my design I was thinking. I couldn't tell you. I can't remember. But they're there. So basically, I think what we're going to do is just run the ESCs under the nacelles and then run the wires inside. So nothing will be on the outside except the ESC. All the power wires that go from the ESC, the signal wire, the ground wire for the telemetry, so on and so forth, and the signal. Everything is going to go back through that hole underneath that ESC. So the only thing you'll see on the outside, if you really can see it that well, is the ESC tucked underneath the nacelle. Now, it may get a little bit warm, which is fine, but it'll be on the outside, so it'll be able to cool. So if it starts to melt the PLA or warp it, I'll know that it's still getting too hot on the outside, and I'll find some other place, or I'll engineer a place into it, because what I planned on doing with this one was realistically just getting it flight worthy to where I could check the aerodynamics of it in forward flight. A lot of that is because I have no data on the forward flight of this thing yet, so I need to get some. So even if I don't take off vertically, or if I do take off vertically but I don't land vertically, it's all about getting the flight data, because I need to know if I need to spread the airfoil out. I have done tests. I did calculations with the overall area and the DAT file, which I got the airfoil design off of, and I checked it, and I only need to be going about 24.5 miles per hour for that wing to start generating lift. And the two large airfoils on the top and bottom used for stabilization in the rudder are for the simple reason that this theoretically can reach 222 miles an hour roughly in about 5 seconds if I punch it. So I've got to be careful. I've got to test this airfoil, and I have to have I have a feel I can do it at. But this is a one-shot deal. If I get this in the air and I get it from the vertical and it's flying stable, then what's going to end up happening is it's either going to drop because the airfoil is not producing enough lift. It does have stabilized roll, pitch, and yaw. So if I punch it and it's level and it's good to go, the auto stabilization and the speed DB will take over and it'll fly straight. And we'll see at that point if it's flying straight and level, if it's nosing up, if it's doing any kind of alpha maneuvering because it's not, the controller's not completely level on the inside. Either way, I think it'll be an interesting flight. So if we're expecting a VTOL to happen in the maiden of this thing, it may work. we're probably going to get half a VTOL where it takes off, and then and the other half the VTOL when I finally figure everything out and I can take off and land. So I may try. I'm going to try both modes. We're going to try drone mode, see how stable it is, and then we're going to land it. And we're going to switch to plane mode, and we're going to take off, and we're going to pray because what's going to happen is it being vertical and in plane mode, it's going to push those. I've got everything set up on Elevon, so both ailerons are gonna go. They're gonna push down to try and level it even before I take off, unless I put some stick input in it, which is dangerous to do, especially when you're taking off vertically and it's trying to stabilize itself. As soon as you touch that stick, it goes level. I mean, instantly. So, now as soon as I let it go, it'll try its best to level itself according to the orientation of the flight controller. So that's what we're gonna do on the Javelin. So when the wire gets here, I'm gonna make sure that it's changed out. I put the ESCs where I said. It's probably gonna take me a week or more to get it done. I may switch out the copper wires. I probably will, with softer wires so that the transitioning system doesn't trip out. Because I think that's why the motor was shutting down. If I can test, if I can test transition, and it doesn't cut out after replacing the wires with the softer wires, then we're good to go. We'll do a transition on the Maiden and cross our fingers. Either way, it's gonna be spectacular. So it'll be fun. You guys remember when I first started flying the Shrike? You know, a lot of people were like, "You're not gonna do it," you know, and that was one of the things I noticed with the Shrike was, flying in stabilized mode is what I do. I'll fly it in angle mode. Realistically, because I'm not an acro pilot. Planes, yeah, I can do acro and planes because you've got some room. You know, you've got your wings, you've got lift, you've got time to pull out of something if you mess it up when you're flying planes. I flew planes long before ELRS was invented. I mean, I remember I was flying planes before the Blade 350 QX drone came out. I mean, that was ages ago. That's when you had just straight it was 2.4, I think, at the time. But no, maybe it wasn't 2.4. Maybe it was. I don't know. I had an old Spectrum DX8, I think, or DX6, and yeah, it was 2.4. But it was just you're binding it to the receiver, and you got your motors inputs, and you have your ailerons and rudder and elevator and landing gear switches and flaps and everything else. I mean, that's what I used to fly. One of my favorite planes was the Super Sky Surfer, but they discontinued it. So now I want to call them up and yell at them. Like, why discontinue that? It's like the best plane on the market. I had so much fun with that plane. The best powered glider I have ever flown, and it's gone. I can't find it anywhere. I want a Super Sky Surfer. You understand me? Are you listening, Banana Hobby? Because so far you're the only place that has it. And you got the small Sky Surfer, but not the Super Sky Surfer, and I can't figure out why. So fix it. Like Banana Hobby's gonna see this video, right? Like one person watching. So moving on from this here, from the Javelin, the next project is going to be a Shrike type based system, because I'm testing out larger motors, larger power distribution systems, 12S batteries. I mean, the system's 12S, and it's 120 millimeter motors. So that's what we're working with. So yeah, the idea, and that particular test is I'm not going to overcomplicate the body. It's just really simply just to check uh, the balance and the overall performance of the system the way it's supposed to be once I fit it into the X-wing fighter, the Star Wars X-wing fighter. Um, I'm going to basically make a core, and then I'm going to put some carbon fiber rods out the length of it. I'm going to measure the tube length of the actual wing and the thrust exit aperture, a nozzle. I'm going to measure the distance between the back of the engine and that, and then print something simple to put around that, so that I have the basically the best scale representation of the main model that I'll be working on. Because that's going to take a little bit longer, because I'm going to print it in Aero PLA from Bamboo Labs, which is really good for. I mean, it feels like if you're doing more than one wall thickness, if you're not printing like a plane that was printed specifically or created specifically for printing, like a lab print plane, you can print it with more than one wall. I mean, obviously, you can do that with any printer, but the point was, it feels like it's almost like foam and balsa mixed. It's like foam and balsa wood had a baby. That's what Aero is. It's lightweight, it's workable, it's sandable, it's drillable. It doesn't melt like foam, so it's really nice to work with. So when I do version 2 of this behind me, it's going to be all in Aero. Right now it's just the wings and rudders that are in Aero. But the X-wing itself, the model, is going to be done in Aero. And then I'm going to, any of the structural pieces will be basically it'll be done in Aero, but it won't be single or double wall. It'll be like triple wall, like when I do the airfoil. Now, I know the X-wing has square fronts, and there's a lot of detail work in that. I'm going to try and keep that detail work in the wing, but I'm going to airfoil those wings on the X-wing that come out and see how much lift I get out of just that length of section. Basically, I'm going to take that section of the X-wing and I'm going to airfoil it and then integrate it back into the model, while still trying to keep the detail and not messing with any of the airflow over the actual airfoil. So, a lot of people thought, well, you do that, you're going to have to add canards in the front in order to have any pitch control, but that's not necessarily true. One of the things you can do is you can use differential thrust instead of any kind of control surfaces. So you do have lift provided by the wings, but you don't necessarily need any moving control surfaces, just the differential thrust and how it's tuned. Now, this is one of the reasons why I'm building a kind of a stock buildup of the frame that's going to hold the electronics, the battery, the engines, and the nozzle, the length of the nozzle that it's going to have on the actual model. And then that'll all go into the model, because the front of the model is actually just more or less aesthetic. I am going to add lights. I'm going to add, typical stuff, even maybe stick an R2-D2 in there. I mean, you've got to put R2-D2. I also have to find a Luke Skywalker model with him wearing a flight helmet, so that I can print that out, and paint it up and put it in the cockpit. Make it turn every time I rudder. Just have some fun with it. So, there's going to be another, like I said, another version of Shrike. I really haven't quite decided on how I want to build it, other than I may either go with either just larger motors, or I may do more than 4. So, and it's not for the purposes of having, an octocopter or anything like that. That's 8 motors, sorry. Or is that 6 sides? No. Why do they call an octocopter with 6 motors? Why do they call a 6-motor drone with an octocopter? Doesn't make any sense. Anyway, maybe I'm wrong. Typical brain moment. Where was I going? I don't remember. I think I may go with a Shrike style drone, but use the engines as stabilization in flight. 2 separate ideas, actually. I wanted pusher motors on it to see if I could use the actual stabilization motors to set altitude, but movement was taken care of by an underbelly thruster. And that was because I had a couple other ideas for some other things. Realistically, I'm going to climb the ladder in the aspect of the size of EDFs I'm using, the size of platforms I'm using, until I'm eventually riding a quad on EDFs. And yes, I am experimenting with hydrogen and using hydrogen fuel cells, specifically a fuel cell stack for a car. That would be on the quad, I would think. Something like out of a Toyota Maya. Are you watching, Toyota? You want to send me one? Just send me a fuel stack so I can get started. I'll give you some amp requirements. We'll work together. You know. Oh, I think Toyota is probably going to stay away from that one. You know. Can you imagine the commercial for it? Yeah. The Toyota EDF drone. You know. But I figure it'd be fun. Why not, right? People are building what was it? Pulse jet engine, carts to drive that older dude with the, the beard bigger than mine. But he's out there just having a blast. Got the GoPro on a stick, just risking his life. That's what I want to do. Not risk my life. Well, I mean, I guess that's part of the thrill, is that something could go wrong. But take all safety precautions if you're ever going to experiment with stuff like this. It is quite dangerous, especially when you get into the bigger models. Then you end up, risking bodily injury. So it's not one of those situations where I build it and then I jump on it and take it for a spin. It's one of those situations where I build it, connect it to my new radio, by the way, which is the TX16S. This is a really good radio. A Radio Master. That just came in, so that helps. No, it's going to be flown by remote initially to ensure safety, especially since I'm going to be running a hydrogen PEM fuel cell to generate enough power. And it's going to be surrounded by 4 very large, very fast-moving EDF engines. So realistically, the idea behind this entire venture is to build something like that, and then to go farther. But I needed support. I need support from people like you who enjoy the content, enjoy watching the models that are being built and the flights taking place, and even the destruction and mayhem that follows in most of my prototypes takeoffs. Trust me, it's been an adventure. I love it. I'm not going to stop doing it. I'm going to keep creating stuff, even if people think it's absolutely ridiculous, the idea. I mean, when you tell me that, I'm going to do it anyway. I'm just going to keep going. I think that's the motivation for me, is when people told me that I couldn't fly the drone, the Shrike, because it draws too many amps, and I'm sitting here flying around for 5 minutes on it. 4.5 technically. If you want to actually add it up, go for it. You can time it in the maiden. Tell me how many minutes exactly. Um, Now the I am going to go forward with just experimenting with hydrogen and if I can produce enough amperage at the voltage necessary with a hydrogen fuel cell. But because we're dealing with a situation where you're facing a thrust to weight ratio, I don't want to just throw any old fuel cell stack in there because I know they got some weight behind them. I may have to design one specifically for this. I know where to source the materials for the membranes. Um, who doesn't know how to make hydrogen? Um, and I may need to get some compressors so that I can compress the oxygen, compress the hydrogen, so on and so forth. And then put it into convenient little bottles for the larger test models. Because see, I have one of the reasons why I started getting into the turbine engines is because I was building, fingers crossed. You like that quotation finger crossing? um, I was building the Cuddy Black from Star Citizen. So, and I'm talking a big one, 5 feet length, I think. But it's gonna have working landing gear, working doors, so on and so forth. Hoping to be detailed enough to be giving it some specifics as far as the inside, what it looks like in gameplay. But the landing gear is going to function just like the one in the game, which didn't make much sense to me to put that much weight in the front of the aircraft and then put the landing gear on these two little duck feet right in the front. So I may widen those out a little bit. But yeah, I was messing with the turbofans because I wanted to make a turbofan that ran efficiently, that was 3D printed, would run off of an Outrunner EDF motor, and could produce the power. Well, it actually be VTOL as well, so it would articulate just like in the game from VTOL to forward flight. That would require a few turbines in the front, not turbines, EDFs in the front blades or wings of the aircraft to keep the front up, and it would require two in the rear, where the battery would be sitting and the engines, the main engines, the turbofans. I'm gorgeous. You're biased. I appreciate the compliment. The idea is that I have a VTOL Cuddy Black with a working rear door and side doors and landing gear and lights and two turbofans that were 3D printed that I put inside the casings of the actual hydrogen engines that are on the Cuddy Black in the game. So yeah, a lot of projects in my mind and on the table. It's just realistically, like for the 90mm motors and the ESCs that I need, I'm looking at well over $2,000 just for those, and that's without a power distribution board, without a flight controller, without a battery, without a receiver, and any other odds and ends. That's just the motors and ESCs, and that's more than I get a month in vet benefits. So that's why I'm trying to get, give you guys the content you like to see and get this channel monetized. I'm going to be honest with you. That's what I'm doing it for. I want to monetize this channel so I can continue to bring you better content, more content, and still be able to eat. Because I took a pretty big hit getting that TX16S, because that other radio that I had was just junk. The buttons didn't work right. Supposed to have these on and off push button switches. It had decent gimbals, but It's just the game controller style transmitters did not work well for me at all. Not being the old school pilot that I am, I'm used to the metal switches. Who doesn't like metal switches? And look at I love the cool little knobs on the sides of this radio. This is the ELRS 2.4 version, internal. Still have room for an external module if I want to do something different. But since I barely know anything about ELRS as it is, I doubt I'll be using anything else. So there's that. I also don't even have goggles for FPV. I would love to put a camera on this thing so I could, once I get it flying, I could actually keep track of where I was. But being an old school pilot and flying from the ground and watching your aircraft, I think being on board, I'd crash it. I think it's going to take some practice. And when it comes down to the drones, the acro, the people taking off at 3,000 miles per hour, and that's great and all, but I mean, I'm not all for the Dramamine flights. You know what I mean? I think FPV's cool. I think flying through all these little tiny holes in buildings is great. It looks neat, but if I did it, I'd get off the bench and then the video would be a straight shot to the wall. That's all it would be. I'm not an acro pilot. I can't do it. I don't know why. I need a small drone. Well, a medium-sized drone, because a small drone would just be harder to fly, I think, in acro mode. So if you can suggest a decent drone for me to start off practicing in acro mode, I'll try and get one put together. The moment that somebody is interested in the rock garden that is my kidney. Other than that, and that's why I put the Patreon up. And that's why I put the, buy me a coffee link up. It's very simply just to help me offset the cost of this. So anybody who does any contributions whatsoever, you're not going to be left in the dark. Okay, you get on the Patreon, you're going to get all the files for the Shrike. You got all the files for the EDF that I completed there. Putting that together though, disclaimer right off the bat. If you don't do it correctly, you're going to injure yourself. Please don't injure yourself. Please take precautions. So if you go to the Patreon link that's on my page, you will find both of the 3MF files for the Shrike and for the other one. Plus, you'll also find for the turbine, but you'll also find a parts list for the Shrike as well. You may have to try and find a different power distribution board, unless you have an ADP 500X laying around, or know someone that can buy you one, or how to get one. So, I deserve all the support. What I'm doing is amazing. It is amazing. I'm not sure I deserve the support, but I am asking for it from the community because I believe there's another way to go in the future of not just drones and fuel and power supplies, but transportation altogether. And I'm having fun. I'm having fun doing it. I'm retired Army. I'm an engineer, and I'm doing my best. Okay, there are some things in Fusion 360 I need to practice, but other than that, I think I did pretty good for solid body modeling. So other than that, any questions from the vast audience? Okay. Waiting for questions. Don't all speak at once now. No question. Okay. So, anyway. These lives never get very many views. That's fine. I'm not sure if it's the hashtags I'm using or if I'm just not that cool a person to look at. But I tell you what, I've been doing some late night Red Dead. Oh, I love that game. So that'll be fun. At least, right? You'll watch that. Right? Do you realize how many views I got from a short of spinning the turbine into my phone, the front of the turbine fan, as opposed to me showing you how I turned it into a functional fan and created the Shrike and how I and videos on that. I mean, you watched me spin a blade into my phone over 7,000 times. Over 7,000 views. And that was like the first day that I had that short out. But if I do anything else, we're going to have to sit and watch and pay attention. You don't. I don't know why. People just kind of swipe by. You know? What kind of meat I got to put out there for you guys to start subbing? You tell me. You want me to do this shit in a bikini? I mean, I swear, it drives me crazy. Let's give you 15 seconds of mindlessness and 1 million views in 24 hours. I'm not trading my dignity for it. Although I might try a bikini. Oh, I have a chat. Hold on. That's exactly right. That's exactly what I said. I'm not doing stupid stuff while showing a nipple. I will though, if it'll get views. I'll spin the turbine up and nothing but me kilt. Except I'll use a pan out the garage to, to protect the grapes. Got one viewer that's making comments. How you doing, lassie? You got a pretty picture there. What are you doing later? Would you like a little Irish in you? Irish cream, I meant. The liquor. No pun intended. That's good stuff. All right. Which one of you people's can say something? What do you want me to build? What do you want me to do next? With EDFs. Who's gonna teach me how to fly acro? Come on. Y'all gotta have something for me. You're out there, right? So say something. You're watching. Say it. Come on. I know what you guys want to see. You either want to see that fly, or you want something explode, or you want to watch somebody get hurt. That's what gets the most views. That's what gets me about. And I don't care if I piss people off. I don't care if you don't want to subscribe or stop being a subscriber because of my views, but it's realistic. Let's be realistic about it. The very moment that I put a set of tits on a thumbnail, I got a ton of views. Really? I mean, I get it. I'm not. That's why I married my wife. I'm a boob man. But the point is, that's what got your attention about the Javelin? That's what got your attention? Me shoving it down the boob, the cleavage of a picture of a woman? That's what got your attention. God, how much shit does society have to eat before it wakes up and realizes it's not a sandwich? I'm telling you, I'm trying to make something here. You know, it's the people that sit in the dark doing the math that keeps things going. I love the ideas that, like, yeah, okay, Spider, he can be a bit sarcastic, but he's got good ideas. He throws them out there. And you know what? Just because I'm an engineer doesn't mean I'm going to think of everything. He may say something that sparks an idea. And when he mentioned hair dryers and how they keep it from melting, so on and so forth, that was a brilliant idea when it came down to burning a warm fuel that might produce heat in a 3D model turbine. Except the rear blades will melt. But the point is, it was thinking outside the box. Now, I don't know how old this guy is. I don't know him at all. I just know him from the chat. But I can tell you one thing. If someone like that is going to see content like mine and have a good idea, that's somebody I want supporting me. Because, hey, I'm a sarcastic prick too. We'll get along just fine. You know? That's simple. You want to follow me? Follow me. You want to sub? Sub. You want to buy me a coffee? Fine. You want to join the Patreon? Fine. You don't do it. I don't care. You don't like it? Swipe away. You're not interested? Doesn't matter. But when I put out good content and then I put out something completely and wholly irresponsible to do with a turbine blade, and that gets more views than anything else, it makes me wonder. I start to lose hope for the future. It's why I look both ways on a one-way street before crossing. It's just that faith in humanity. Look, I can tell you right now, that turbine exploding was 12 seconds long. We've never seen a view average of 151.5%, but whatever. 7,431 views. Really? Okay. I'll give you tidbits of crap. How about that? I bet I made in the Javelin, it blows up, crashes, does something else. I get more views out of that than a successful flight. How much you want to bet? The first social experiment was the cleavage picture with the Javelin in it. I proved that. Blew up a turbofan. I knew it was going to blow up. You could hear it when I first started it. That's because it was unbalanced. And there was a problem with the blade in the front. But I ran it anyway. The blade that I printed for the high-pass engine was stopped at 75%. I ran out of filament. I was waiting for some. And it had a bad support area, so it came a little bit gloppy on one of the blades. Not sure that's a word. But, so I knew it was unbalanced. But I was testing that motor. And I was testing the strength of the PETG, which, by the way, wow, Overture. That's some good PLA, or PETG. That was Overture PETG. And I dare you to even try and break it with a motor that spins that fast. That thing was tough. That's the toughest blade I ever printed. And the moment I do something irresponsible with it, y'all watch it. So, you know, what the heck, right? I'll wear safety gear and see how fast I can spin the motor before it flies apart. But I honestly don't think that motor, any motor I have right now, has the RPMs to kill that blade. Balanced or unbalanced. It's a tough blade. It's an extremely tough blade. And I'm telling you, Overture, PETG. Yes, a carbon spool will work in the AMS of the X1 carbon. Because I used the entire spool of PETG and didn't have one issue with it. And there was a carbon, or not carbon, cardboard spool. It wasn't plastic. It didn't have a liner on it. It ran just fine. If it doesn't work in yours, then it doesn't work in yours. Put a plastic ring around it, whatever. As I don't like, that's just useless prints to me. If it works, it works. The X1 Carbon from Bamboo Lab. That's a good printer. The only issue I have with it sometimes is PVA, which is a water soluble filament, and they warn you about this, is not entire. It's compatible with the AMS, but it does sometimes get stuck in the extruder. The extruders on these things are notoriously hard to repair. They're easy to replace, hard to repair. Just because stuff can get everywhere in these things when it starts to mess up, and it just winds up that filament. It's like, I'm clogged. So, and then sometimes the AMS can get confused, so you gotta like reset it so it can read the tags on the Bamboo brand filament, and then you end up getting a decent, reading of everything. And actually, I don't think there's a weight sensor in there. I think it goes by millimeters, but it kind of tells you how much is there. So I think it reads the serial numbers on the tags and then decides the time it was put in before, if it was put in before, and how much was there. Because I can put an old filament in that has a little bit on it, and it'll come up as a specific amount of filament on the screen. It's actually kind of ingenious, but it prints really well. It prints. Now, when I printed the turbine fan, I did do it in 0.6 millimeter, and I did it on the engineering plate. And I did it in PLA matte PLA, nothing else. Given the strength of the PETG, I might use it for the turbofan, except for the fact that stuff is just sticky and stretchy, and it's I don't know, when you're printing with it. The X1 does great with it, but if you get the temp wrong, you're gonna have a bunch of like these. You've seen it. You've seen the PETG fur. Okay, I know all of you have. So that's when when you grab your print off, it's gonna go. So luckily, there's presets for it, and they have their own PETG, so I don't have to mess with any presets. I'll try the turbine and PETG because I think with the strength that I have found in that blade, that if I do the turbofan again, it'll be in that. The rear nozzle, I will clutch so that the fan can stop if you decide to use a pressurized gas. I chose helium for that one, just to simulate the overpressure inside that chamber and the effect it would have on the blades spinning and pushing that compressed air through the rear turbine. And it not being a fuel and being an inert gas, it wouldn't destroy the 3D printed blades at the rear. But the problem is this, unless this is printed in a very rigid material, it's gonna warp. Those blades tend to warp, they tend to move. They rub against the stators. Stators could be printed in it fine, but I think if you SLA printed the spools and the blades, you'd be fine, and the rest could be FTM. And then check the tolerances to see if everything fits together properly. When I did the high pass fan, I set the case up to split at 50%, so you can put everything together, and then drop it in, and then bolt it all together, and then put you get some just thin rubber gasket in the sheets, and you just kind of cut it out and put it between the two halves, and then when you bolt it together, it holds together nicely. You're not creating enough pressure to push past that, so don't worry. But you will produce some thrust for sure. So I'm gonna reprint that. I was gonna send out for SLA printed parts, but it's like by the time you send out that many SLA printed parts, or parts to print in SLA, you could just buy a dang SLA printer. I had the original Form 2, and it was a decent printer, but it wasn't the low force version like they do in the Form 3. So I had problems with the silicone coming apart on the bed, that kind of stuff. The whole tilt and pull mechanism, it didn't work. But that rolling low force stereolithography, that's actually pretty decent. So yeah, I'd love to have it done. I'm just not going to pay. And I don't know why they charge so much for shipping. You know, you go onto that JLCP whatever website, and everyone's like, go there, and you see people getting sponsored by it all the time. I send up a couple of blades, and they come back with a $55 shipping. Why? First off, it's a 3D printed blade. It's going to weigh almost nothing anyway. I understood if I printed it in steel, there being a shipping cost, maybe that high, but it's just ridiculous. So I might see if Anycubic has any printers out that are dimensionally accurate enough. And we'll see how it goes. I'll check it out. We'll do some tests with it. Again, it's another expense. Can't do quite right now, but I'm working on it. I'm working on it. But other than that, if there's any questions anybody has regarding the future projects and turbofan or anything else, you can leave comments on this later on. I'll check it out, or just send me an email or something. So if you're interested in the files, they are on Patreon. The link is in my bio. Not my bio. It's on my page. You'll see it. It's there somewhere. Next to the buy a coffee link. No, I'm not buying coffee with it. I'll probably end up waiting for 100 people to buy me a coffee and buy another set of ESCs, because everything I'm using is in this came off the Shrike, with the exception of the motors. Because I kind of messed those up a little bit. So yes, if you get a chance to, just subscribe. Eventually they'll monetize me and things will be fine. Be able to get all kinds of stuff. Things aren't getting any cheaper. I know. I appreciate everything you guys do, even the subs, taking out the time. But and I want the people who are interested in what I'm doing, and not just the people who are, interested in me blowing stuff up, like the blades on the end of that fan and everything. It gets me views, but not subscribers for the most part. So I do appreciate everyone that has subscribed. And Patreon right now, I'm set on a 7-day free trial, I believe. So you can go check it out. And I'm trying to put content up there. I'm not real sure how to use Patreon, so we'll go from there. If you guys don't have a printer, if you don't have a 3D printer, or if you don't have one that you think that'll do, like, say for instance the Shrike well, I may put up a shop where I make it fairly inexpensive just to print the parts for you and then send them to you. And I can even, because I can do it does tool changes, it does filament changes. I can, if you send a logo, I can add that, and I'll send you a components list along with the printed parts. And I won't charge very much for it. I'll figure out what it'll cost. The machine gives me a breakdown of the cost of the filament being used. I don't think I'll go much farther than that, just because I'm trying to help you guys out. So just to be nice, put it together, fly it around, see what you think. And then you can, experiment and do your own thing. Change the motors, change the ESCs. If you want to do it in 40 millimeter, or if you want to do it in another millimeter, just let me know and I'll get the file ready. But I'll make it available from when I do the prints. I'll try and make a shop where I make it available in, everything from 30 millimeter, 40 millimeter, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100, 120. And then tell you what, what motors fit. So, and I'll try and design it specifically around fairly inexpensive motors you can get off of Amazon. You can use standard ESCs. I just think you're gonna get more of a response time out of D-Shot. I'm sorry, I can't do anything about the price of ESCs, but it did cost me over 300 for just those 4 E-Flight EP3V2, I think, and it's increasingly more difficult to get parts. That I don't like the overcomplication of iNav and the D-Shot and blah blah blah, and it's like, why do we have to overcomplicate it? And now it's like BL Heli's supposed to be dead, and you're gonna do AMS 32, and it's like, then ADP stops selling certain things, and this person stops selling certain things because of government regulations and whatnot. It's ridiculous. They're trying to. The hobby's getting destroyed because it's getting overcomplicated and way too expensive. I mean, how can it be that expensive if you're importing everything? I mean, give me a break. I mean, I'll bet money I could find them on Temu, the ESCs, because typically they come from out overseas. So the motors do, for sure. The motors I'm using. I put a link to those in the turbine video, so you'll know what Success motors I was getting. But they take forever to get here because they are coming from overseas, and that's kind of my point. Yeah, I could go to get FPV, which will never happen again, and I could get myself some ESCs. But they don't have anything I need anymore. I mean, it's all too low powered. Anything high powered, most of these companies have decided to work with, the commercial industry rather than the hobbyist industry. So it's hard to get any of the parts. And I'm not going to go off and design I may have to eventually, but I was already researching designing a power distribution board of my own, and ESCs, but that's going to take a while. And once I get that perfected, I mean, because I've got a lot of stuff I'm doing, and I'm not doing a lot anyway because, like I said, I'm a retired vet. I'm at home. I've got injured, so it's like there's not a lot I can do. So I do what I can, and part of me enjoying this is coming up with new things and printing it and flying it. So that's what I'm doing. And yes, we're gonna have a maiden. As soon as I get the wire in here and I get everything fixed, there'll be a maiden on the Javelin. Then I want to do another Shrike because I like the Shrike. I think the Shrike could have been a lot faster. I was flying it in angle mode, which limits the RPMs. So that way it has a ceiling in order to autocorrect for you. So, yeah. I mean, there's a lot of stuff I'm going to be doing. You guys have any ideas, things you'd like to see, just let me know. And I'll do my best to get started on them. But it's just taking me time. I mean, we're getting up there in the subs, and eventually things will get to the point where it's monetized, and then I'm not gonna make a lot. I'm not expecting to make a whole bunch. Just enough to kind of help offset the cost of doing this, because I would personally be happy with 1 or 2 airplanes and that'd be it. But I'm also doing research, and I'm also trying to do fun stuff for you guys and for myself, and it's a hobby. It's something I've always loved to do. If you look up the channel, because I can't claim it anymore because I started it with a YouTube account. No, wait, I'm sorry. I started it with a Yahoo account. And even though I have access to the Yahoo account, I can't get Google to verify that that's who I am, so I can't reclaim the channel. But it's Tyson, Tyson, 200422. I used to fly. There's a lot more stuff on there too. I had my Marley, my snake. I went shooting a couple times, and I was designing a rail for a rifle to protect the gas tube, things like that. Back in the day when we all hadn't lost our minds, and so yeah, you'll see me flying there, like Flight of the Fubar. That was funny. I found that plane and then I recovered it. That was a fun plane to fly. There's videos on there of us kind of just getting into the hobby, and then eventually I'm flying jets. I can't land jets on landing gear. Still have yet to land successfully on landing gear. And I had a big I think it was a Su-20. I can't remember. It was a Russian plane, but it had twin 50s, I think, in it, or 60s. I felt like it was underpowered. It was flying like it was underpowered for sure, but that's what you get. Sometimes from some of these places, and that one came from Banana Hobby, I think. But it's Tyson 200422. I also developed a sugar rocket that I never saw again. I was having fun doing that. I was basically making sugar rockets out of PVC tube, 2-inch PVC pipe and couplers, and I would melt the potassium nitrate and the sugar on the stove, and YouTube, don't freaking freak out. Okay, Niall Reed has done way worse than this. It's a sugar rocket. It's a hobby. Anyway, I made it 2 inches in diameter and 15 inches long, and I put a 1/4-inch dowel rod in the middle. And I used, I lined the internal core because it's sticky. It's almost like caramel. I lined the internal core with powdered, meal powder, black powder, so that it would all ignite at once. Because I wanted the burn going out was giving me more power than the burn going up, like a black powder engine. So, well, if you see it, you'll see it. It was test fire. I think it was homemade rocket test fire 3, and it kind of made it like a bottle rocket. I just put like a stick and a fin on it, and I had made a launch pad for it and everything. It was actually quite amusing. But I was a lot younger then, and I took a lot more risks. I can tell you that. But yeah, that was fun. I just wish I could get that channel back. I don't know if anybody knows like how to reclaim a channel that you had when you had a Yahoo account, and Google's like, I don't know who this is. I don't know who Yahoo is. It's like, relax, Google. It's me. You're supposed to say, and then they made me wait 30 days for an email. Not sure why. That would come through the Yahoo email, and then I would click a link and verify that it was me, and I could reclaim the account. And then it failed. And they're like, sorry, we couldn't. We didn't have enough information. It's like, how could you not have enough information? I mean, you have enough information. I have the email and everything else. I just want to change the password so I can get back into that YouTube account and pull some of those videos down and put them in a playlist for you guys here, because the flights I did there were fun. I could fly the hell out of that little F-22 Raptor. I'll tell you that. That was a fun plane. I think that was a 50 mil. Yeah, it was a 50 mil EDF, but that was fun. And man, I used to experiment all the time. I used to put bigger motors on stuff and bigger propellers. I was flying the Switch, which was a switch from a low wing aircraft to a high wing aircraft. So like from a Cessna type to a standard aircraft. And I had put a motor on that, a bigger motor than was called for. And I was flying over at Ribbon Sports Park, and the engine fell off. So I'm flying in dead stick with the engine. The engine flew way off. We had to go get the engine. But that's what I did. I loved it. I had fun with that thing. I put a bigger battery in it, put a bigger motor in it. I was just having a blast. You know, I did the same thing with the Sky Surfer. Changed the prop. It was a bigger prop, pushed more air, but I cut it down so that it would fit on there, and I loved it. That Sky Surfer was so much fun. And then what else? Oh, the Raven. I got into nitro, and I started doing a lot of nitro, building stuff out of balsa wood. I was building a huge DC3, but that got, I'll say, stolen, because it did. I had a P-51 Mustang. These all had 7-foot wingspans, so these were big planes. And I also had a Raven, belonging to a friend of mine, but I had to build it. And I flew that one for a while. That one was fun to fly, but scary. Your heart starts going when you're flying a big nitro-powered plane, and it's like, you land that thing and you're like, was I breathing the whole time? You know, because and I had a P-47 Thunderbolt, but I had the CG wrong on that one, so I crashed it. But yeah, it's been a while. I had a B-17 from Banana Hobby with the 4 engines. That was cool. I had an F-35. I had a helicopter that I crashed all at Ripon Sports Park. I'm not very good at flying helicopters. So, real ones, yes, but not models. Things happen a bit slower in a real helicopter. So, but it was fun. I've been into this hobby for years, and I've been creating things for years. So it's just something I want to do. I want to create. And when someone says, "Oh, that's impractical. You're never going to FPV with that," I was like, "Well, great. I'm glad that it doesn't suit your needs, because that's not what I made it for." I made it because I wanted to. I wanted to do it. And if somebody doesn't like it, then don't sub and don't watch. I'm not forcing you to. But there's people that have come up here and like told me, "Oh, yeah, that's a horrendous form of engineering." I'm like, head slap moment, because originally when I developed the Shrike, it was for data collection. It was how EDFs responded to different types of ESCs and flight controllers and INAV and so on and so forth. And I was learning, and he's telling me, I'm like, this is a horrendous. I forget the comments quote, completely, but he said it was a horrible engineering job. And I thought, it's funny because I'm flying it, and you said with that battery pack it wouldn't last very long, and then he said he could fly his whole fleet for like days on that battery. So, but I tried not to take it personally. It's the smugness of it. It's the entitlement. It's like, look, you couldn't do it. Fine, I did it. You didn't. You didn't think it up. Don't get pissy with me and leave pissy comments, because I'll block you, or I won't even block you. I'll let you spout off because you sound like a fool. It's real simple. So I'm not taking any shit from anybody. Real simple. I'm doing what I'm doing because I want to do it. I want to do it. I want to entertain you guys, and I want to give you something that you can do if you want to do it. But I want to do it, so I'm doing it. That simple. And if people don't like it, I'm going to get haters for it. I've had a few of them. It's totally fine. I think the fact that I got under your skin from wherever the hell you are and wherever the hell I am, that's awesome. I got under your skin. I hope I'm still there. I hope you can't get rid of that itch. Just freaking enjoy life, dude. Relax. But that's how people are. What are you going to do? As you can see from my stream, I'm still trying to figure out how to get everything set up over here on OBS. I was kind of hoping the chat would come through on that side. But, I think I did something wrong. Well, I feel like playing a little Red Dead. Anybody want to see it? Some late night Red Dead. I enjoy that game. Everyone asks me sometimes, they go, why you go around killing everybody on that game instead of playing the game? Well, he's a bad guy, right? He's an outlaw. I'm just playing a role, right? I'm supposed to be Arthur Morgan. I'm supposed to be killing everything. Hopefully one day getting out of life, but never doing it. That's the whole idea. I enjoy doing it. I don't like going online anymore because of the hackers, because they tend to ruin the entire game. But I almost forgot I had that picture. Wait, over there. That picture of the Shrike after that last flight when I just totally bombed it. That's something I did in INAV. But yeah, I still have the carcass sitting out there. A couple of motors in it. I don't think they work. They may or may not work. Getting those things apart is... Getting EDFs apart in general is difficult when it comes to cleaning them. So, and the wiring on these things, the windings aren't perfect. They're not the best. So it's like if they go, they go. Let them go. Just get new ones. Send them back. Say they failed. Have them refund to you and give you some new ones. It'll just take a month for it to happen, unless we get something going on this side. No, something on this side of the pond that doesn't cost as much as a freaking Tesla because it was made in America. I mean, you haven't got it as good as Taiwan's making them, so don't waste my time with it unless it's good. And it's like, make it affordable. Isn't that the point of doing it here? Let's make it affordable. Okay, well, there you go. Go with that. You know, I mean, everyone's like, you care about the environment, you'll get a Tesla. I'm like, dude, I care about the planet. I just can't afford a damn Tesla. Oh, go get another hybrid. No, I'm not, because they're tiny. And I'm 6'4". I'm 6'4" and 300 pounds. There's no way in hell I'm fitting in a friggin' Prius. Okay? I'm not doing it. All right? If you want me to be green, you'll drop a Tesla over there that'll fit me right over here in front of my house. Do that. I'll go green. Until then, shut up. I'm burning fuel. All right. With that, I want to thank y'all for coming. Those who enjoyed this rant and rave and drone talk and whatever the hell I was freaking doing. I myself, as some of you, live in the great state of California. So after this, I'm going to relax with a nice bowl. And it doesn't require milk. So, as far as the Patreon goes, if you guys like, join me. If you don't. Want to buy me a coffee? Buy me a coffee. If you don't. But at least subscribe.
I don't know who you are. I don't know what you want. If you're looking for ransom, I can tell you I don't have money. But what I do have are a very particular set of skills. Skills
Lovely,
I've
Neeson.
acquired over a very long career. Skills that make me a nightmare for people like you.
This is so you could
If
subscribe.
you let my daughter go now, that'll be the end of it. I will not look for you. I will not pursue you. But if you don't, I will look for you. I will find you. And I will kill you.
God, I love that. Love that guy. He's great in movies. I liked him in Ted too. That was funny. The cereal part. That was funny for me. So, but as far as those haters out there,
Don't mess with me, I'm one crazy mofo. I had to pop a cop because he wasn't giving me my props in Oaktown.
there you go. other than that, I want to thank you all for being here. I appreciate it. It was a lot of fun. You all have a wonderful evening, and I hope to see you again soon. I hope you come up with some ideas. I mean, just shoot me a message. Let me know what you want to see built. I'll do it. Have a good time. See y'all. Good night.